I'm going to clean the gasket groove. We have to make sure that we don't have any oil in the gasket groove, because if you have oil in the gasket groove, that may prevent the new gasket from sitting properly. Okay, I'm gonna clean this. Now, when I was buying these parts, the guys at the BMW dealership told me that the gasket, they told me that the line that supplies fuel to the fuel rail has to be replaced. They said that BMW recommends replacing that line after you remove it. So I did buy a new line. This is the fuel supply line to the fuel rail. So this goes from the high pressure pump to the rail. So we have to replace that. Okay, so now let's get our gasket out of the bag. All right, so here's our brand new gasket. Now I am going to install it. We're gonna feed the gasket in the groove. So we're gonna install our brand new gasket in the groove, just like that. So at this point, all I have to do is making sure that the gasket sits properly in the groove on the valve cover. And then I don't know if you guys can tell, but this gasket is sticking out, which is good. That's how it's gonna seal. All right, so our gasket is installed. So now I'm pushing it down and making sure that it's sitting properly in the groove. All right, so we have installed our brand new gasket. So now we're gonna remove this one over here. So this is another gasket that we have to replace. So here's our brand new gasket. We're gonna install it just like that. All right, now we're gonna remove the second one. Okay, so replacing these gaskets is really straightforward. As long as you use OEM gaskets, you should be good to go. Now, some aftermarket gaskets work, but I don't like using aftermarket gaskets, especially when I do these type of works. I mean, these type of jobs. Because the last thing you want is redoing this. So we want to do this once and done. Okay. So you need to make sure you use the right gasket, a gasket that fits well. So we got our inside gasket installed. Now I'm gonna turn the valve cover. As you can see, our gasket didn't fall, so that's good. Now I'm gonna replace this one over here. We're gonna replace the gaskets for the high pressure fuel pump. So the gasket is gonna go this way. All right. So we got our gaskets replaced. So now we're gonna replace this O-ring over here for the PCV system. All right. So our valve cover gasket has been installed. So now let's take this to the vehicle so we can install it. Now we're gonna install our valve cover. So we're gonna gently get our valve cover installed. Just like that. We're gonna gently lower our valve cover. So just like that, our valve cover is installed. Now the bolts are already on the cover, so I'm gonna get all the bolts started and then we're gonna torque them down. So we got all the bolts for the valve cover started. So now we're gonna go to the back of the vehicle. All right, we got all the bolts for the valve cover started. Now we're gonna go to the back of the valve cover so we can install our vacuum pump. Now we're gonna install our vacuum pump. There we go. All right. So we got our vacuum pump installed. The vacuum pump is lined up. So I had to make sure that the shaft of the vacuum pump lined up with the camshaft. Okay, so as you can see, our vacuum pump went in, it's engaged. to the camshaft. The vacuum pump is engaged to the camshaft, so that's good. So now I'm gonna get the bolts of the pump and get them started. All right, so I got the bottom bolt of the vacuum pump started. So now I'm gonna get the third bolt of the vacuum pump installed. So now we're gonna tighten the vacuum pump bolts. Now you don't want to go super tight on these bolts, because these bolts actually are bolted on the cylinder head, which is aluminum. All right, so I got the second bolt tightened. So now I'm gonna tighten the last bolt back here. All right, so we are down to tightening the last bolt. All right, so I got all the bolts of the vacuum pump tightened, so we're good to go. We can reconnect this line just like that. So now let's torque the bolts for the valve cover. So now we're gonna torque the bolts of the valve cover. The torque spec for the valve cover bolts is 75.2 inch-pound. So we're gonna torque these bolts to 75.2 inch-pound. So I'm gonna start here in the center. So that's torqued. So we're gonna crisscross the pattern of these bolts. That's torqued. Now we're gonna come over here. Now we're gonna go here. I hope you can hear the torque wrench click. That's torqued. That's torqued. Once again, we're torquing these bolts up to 75 inch-pound. I think it was 75.8 inch-pound. Now I'm gonna make sure all these bolts are torqued, and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can continue. So I have torqued all the bolts for the valve cover. So all the valve cover bolts have been torqued, so we're good to go. So now let's start putting everything back together. All right, so we're gonna install these VVT solenoids. All right, so we got the bolts for the VVT solenoid started. So now we're gonna tighten them. All right, so just like that, I'm gonna reconnect the electrical connector. So now we're gonna install the intake VVT solenoid. Okay, just like that. So now we're gonna get the bolt for this solenoid started. All right, so we got our VVT solenoids installed. We're good to go. So now I'm going to install the little bracket that goes back here. So at this point, I'm gonna make sure that every little thing that we removed goes back where it came out of. Okay. So now we're gonna fold our wiring harness back here. So now I'm trying to get this wiring harness wired properly here. All right, so I got all the wires routed properly. All right, so we got our wiring harness clipped in. So now I'm gonna reconnect our O2 sensors. All right, we got the first O2 sensor installed. Actually, the gray one is going to be up here. The black one is the one that's going to be on the bottom. All right, so we got our O2 sensors reconnected, so all is looking good back here. So now I'm gonna install our high pressure fuel pump. All right, so now we're gonna install a new gasket right here. I'm gonna put a little bit of grease around it so it can slide in easily, just like that. Now we're gonna install our high pressure fuel pump. Now these bolts over here for the high pressure fuel pump have to be replaced. So the guys at the BMW dealer told me to replace these bolts. So it's recommended by the manufacturer to replace these bolts. So if you're doing this job, make sure you change these bolts.